Thought you might be interested in training me.
I don't train girls.
Maybe you should. People see me fight, say I'm pretty tough.
Girly, tough ain't enough.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where each week we enter the world of a great film, we explore its themes, the history, the filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Roca. I'm a writer, producer, and host over on The Outlaw Nation, voiceover artist as well, and excited co-host for the Cine-Files, especially for this film that we're going to talk about today, Steve.
And we are doing something a little bit different, which is we've partnered with a little tiny studio called Warner Brothers. Mm-hmm. And Warner Brothers is doing a famous filmmaker series. In 5 nights, starting on September 15th, they're going behind the scenes on 5 of their most important filmmakers, which includes Stanley Kubrick, Ridley Scott, Martin Scorsese, Clint Eastwood, and Frank Darabont.
The Warner Brothers will feature its series Hollywood's Most Influential Filmmakers on YouTube starting September 15th. You can go to youtube.com/Warner Brothers Online, Warner Bros Online for more information.
And what we were so excited about was it just seemed to fit with exactly the mission of the Cine-Files, which is all we've been doing for the last 4 years is taking deep dives into the films and the filmmakers that created some of the greatest films in history. And it seems as if Warner Brothers is doing a similar exploration of their favorite filmmakers.
Yeah, and they reached out to us and asked us if we'd be willing to promote and kind of support this thing that they're doing. And we were excited to do it because these are some of the filmmakers that we have covered here on the Cine-Files already. And you all know we're massive lovers of classic films, of films that stand the test of time. And certainly all 5 of these directors, Kubrick, Ridley Scott, Scorsese, Eastwood, and Darabont, have done films that will stand the test of time, will eventually end up in the top 100, AFI top 100, whenever they do them again. I'm sure a number of films from all of these filmmakers will end up on that final list. So it's an exciting thing to be a part of, Steve, for sure.
And after a little bit of back and forth with Warner Brothers, we settled on the film that we wanted to explore in honor of their filmmaker series is $1 Million Baby, 2004 from Clint Eastwood. And I got to tell you right off the bat, this movie absolutely destroyed me in a way that I really didn't. I wept for like 25, 30 minutes of the film. And I was having to type because I'm always typing notes and I'm like typing and sobbing, which is not really a good way to do it. I mean, I had such a strong reaction, way more than I thought I would. And I'm really excited to be exploring it today.
Well, how long has it been since you've seen it, Steve?
Since I saw it in the theater.
Wow. So since then, you've become a father. You've become, you've gotten older. You've kind of had things go on in your life. People come into your life, people leave your life. So a lot has happened to you since. So when you watch this movie, I'm sure you felt like when the first time you watched it, you were closer to the fighter. Now you're the Clint Eastwood. You're closer to the Clint Eastwood in your mind, or closer to the Morgan Freeman character in your mind. And I absolutely agree with you, man. It's a film that I find very difficult to watch because it is. I put it in the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest pile, which is those films that have a tragic moment that absolutely decimates you because you've fallen in love with the protagonist of the film, which in this case, of course, is played by Hilary Swank, and what happens to her at the end of near the end of the film, and what it leads to is just so goddamn heartbreaking, and it's tough to watch because we want this we have this natural inclination to cheer for our heroes in movies and want them to succeed and hit the mountaintop and change their lives. And unfortunately, this is someone who got to climb up to the top of the mountain and peer over the top of the mountain before they were knocked back down again, you know?
I think the Cuckoo's Nest comparison is such a good one because that movie, I rewatched it probably for the first time in a while, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And what surprised me so much is that movie's totally fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's really, really fun until it becomes absolutely horrible.
Right.
And I think that's what kind of happened in this film, particularly since, I'm watching it, I knew what was going to happen. I know where we're going to go. So I have this horrible sense of dread. And because I'd only seen it, I saw it once in the theater, absolutely loved it, and then haven't watched it since, I didn't know how far along it was going to be when we get to the huge turn. I didn't know if it was the halfway mark or 5 minutes before the end. I didn't really remember. So I had this dread throughout of like, please just have it be later. Let it be short. I don't want to go there because it's so rough. How did you first come to this film?
I think just like everything else we've come to in here in LA that's anything post 2000. I think I just went with a bunch of friends. Don't remember if it was Vogel. Don't remember if it was us. And went to go see it. And I remember just absolutely enjoying the hell out of the movie and getting very emotional and angry when what happens to her at the end of the movie, and just that feeling has always stayed with me. And also the feeling of Hilary Swank as this incredible actress. I mean, she had this like 5 to 8 year run where she was just, everyone talked about her. She had won 2 Oscars, and then of course now recently she'll only occasionally pop up in things, and you know, you wonder what happened. And it's so I don't think it's from any fault of her own. I think it's more casting directors not wanting to put her in certain projects or certain films. But this, you forget how good she is till you watch her again and realize how good she is. And it's a joy to discover it. And this is Eastwood before he becomes too old. This is Eastwood before we see him now. You know, I interviewed him last year for that Richard Jewell movie, and it was a pleasure to be in his company, a pleasure to talk to him. He's such a gentleman. He stood up and shook my hand after the interview, which was like a shock to me, very much an honor to me. Wore a tie and a suit to do, and so he's just. But you can tell he's he's old now, and he drifts off sometimes in conversation and on tangents, and so they had to kind of keep him corralled in. But he's still an incredibly nice gentleman and respectful gentleman, and it was an honor to interview him. But watching him in the movie, you forget that's the Eastwood you love, that gruff, hard-edged guy who has life lessons to teach you if you're willing to listen.
He is, I really think we've always talked about this contrast between the demanding, irrational, crazy, over the top, angry directors like Kubrick and, Ridley Scott and, 2 other guys that are on this list. Yeah. And then we've contrasted them with the nice, warm, rational, reasonable directors like Ron Howard and Rob Reiner. And of course, Clint Eastwood is absolutely in that group. He might be, I think, the calmest director in Hollywood. Yeah. And it's funny, we the other film we've done by Clint Eastwood was Unforgiven, which he did about a year ago, and we had a huge long biography just really going into his history. So if you want to know more about how this guy became the director that he became, I would say first go back and listen to our Unforgiven episode, and second, go to youtube.com/Warner Bros online and enter into this director series, and they're also going to be exploring this fantastic director. I want to give a little bit of pre-production, which is this all starts with a short story written by FX Tool. And FX Tool is the pen name for Jerry Boyd. And Jerry Boyd was a boxing trainer and a cut man for 50 years. Yeah. And Angelique Houston read this short story, and she called up her buddy Al Ruddy, Albert S. Ruddy, the producer, and she said, Al, read this, and if you don't cry at the end, don't bother calling me back. Our friendship is over. So he read it. He cried. Yeah. He said he bought the rights immediately. Said this is going to be an amazing movie, and it went into development hell. Nobody wanted it. Years and years and years. He hires Paul Haggis to write the screenplay. Wow. And basically they had a understanding that if they raised the money, that Paul Haggis would be directing this film. Oh, yeah. Now, it doesn't sound like there was anything in paper. It doesn't even sound like they made a handshake deal. It was sort of like, and I don't know, your experience with producers, but good producers are very good at dangling something in front of you without necessarily committing to it. Haggis writes a screenplay. Nobody wants it. Wow. They bring on a guy, Tom Rosenberg, who's the kind of the financial side of the producer. And finally, he puts together a deal for a budget of $6 to $7 million. And Ruddy says, no. We can't make that movie for that. And the $6 to $7 million movie, that's probably the one that Paul Haggis could direct. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, if he had said yes to that, then Paul Haggis would have directed $1 Million Baby. But he says, no, I think this needs to be a bigger movie. I think this is an A-list Oscar kind of movie. Wow. And he's off at Sun Valley and runs into his old buddy Clint Eastwood. They never worked together. They've known each other a long time. And suddenly he goes, Eastwood. And he hands him the script. And Clint reads the script and says, it's a great script, but it's a downer. I don't want to do it.
Wow.
And turns it down. Clint's wife finds the script on a nightstand or something. She stays up all night, cries all night. Clint Eastwood is now in. I can't tell you how many stories we've had where it's been the wife read the script. I think James Earl Jones did Field of Dreams because his wife read the script. Yep. I think Paul Verhoeven did RoboCop because the wife read the script. There's there's a whole bunch of stories where the guy said no, and the much smarter wife said, no, you have to do this.
Yeah, because our wives are smarter than we are. That's why if you have any remote intelligence, you pick a wife who's as smart as you are, if not smarter, so that you can constantly stay in challenged by this person. And so no surprise at all. No surprise at all.
I think this is sage advice from the outlaw, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Never marry someone dumber than you. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So Al thinks, hey, I got Eastwood. He's an Academy Award-winning director. He's a star for 50 years. Going to be no trouble raising that money. Nope. Nobody wants to do it. They go to every studio. Every studio turns it down. Clint has done a whole bunch of movies with Warner Brothers and goes to Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers goes, first of all, it's really depressing. We don't want to do it. Second of all, nobody wants to see a movie where it's just two old guys talking. And third of all, and the biggest one, is it's about girl boxing.
Right.
No one's interested.
Right.
No one wants to do it.
At this time, and this was something, I'm glad you referenced this, Steve, because I meant to bring it up. At this time, people forget now because we've seen women MMA, we've seen women professional wrestling, we've seen women sports kind of explode with the USA soccer team and WNBA and all of that. But people forget it. When women were first getting into boxing, it was a really big deal. This is where you saw a lot of the misogyny, the sexism pop up, this idea that girls can't fight, this idea that it was turned into a joke. You saw Tanya Harding doing celebrity boxing, but there was Layla Ali. Mm-hmm. Of course, and Ali being a trailblazer in this situation. Layla Ali and a couple of other female boxers had really come into prominence and were at this time building a pop culture mainstream kind of resume, or kind of just a connection with pop culture mainstream, and they started to be talked about. So when Eastwood is talking to Hilary Swank, and I know we'll get to it as we go through scene by scene through the movie, but that's essentially the public saying that at the time that this movie was being pitched or being talked about getting made, the public had not yet fully embraced the idea of female boxers. And of course, now that seems like so archaic, as you see women MMA, Ronda Rousey being a massive star coming out of her, Gina Carano in The Mandalorian, that's an MMA champion, so it was so funny how quickly that has turned. But it was like going back in time, Steve, to remembering it, that when they used to say that about women's boxing.
There's no question that it's turned, and there's no question that we pay far more attention to the WNBA or whatever it is than we did before. But still, and this is the thing I was thinking about, is still, if you go like, well, how much press time, how much money, how much attention goes to this versus the male version? Sure. And is it a 20th, maybe?
I don't know. I'd have to do analysis, but that's a fair point.
And I know we hit these things sometimes, but I just came up with the best way to see this lack of diversity, this idea of inclusion. And so I just wanted to share it with, because suddenly it popped in my brain. The easiest way to see how sexist Hollywood has been traditionally is look at ensemble movies. If you take a look at ensemble movies, they are almost always at least 2-to-1 male to female. And I'll take my own film, The Assistants alone. The Assistants is an ensemble movie of 6 characters, 4 guys, 2 girls. Mm-hmm. You look at Cheers. You look at Seinfeld. Seinfeld's 3 guys, 1 girl. You look at The Avengers. You look at Ocean's 11. You look at, MASH. You look at the Justice League, Lord of the Rings, Guardians of the Galaxy, original Star Wars. It's like over and over again, you see these ratios of 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, or all guys. And yes, there are a few all-female ensemble movies, but very, very few comparatively, and tons of all-male ensemble movies. And so it's like right there, we have a great script, we have a fantastic director, and the studio looks at it and goes, it's girl boxing. Nobody wants to do it, And that is the barrier that is still being fought today. He goes to Hilary Swank. Clint is really concerned. She's a great actress, but she's built like a stick. You know, can she put on the weight? Can she do the physicality? He goes to Morgan Freeman, who obviously he's worked with before, and and he says, and hands him the script, doesn't tell him which part. And Morgan Freeman says, "Look, I'll play either part, the black guy or the white guy." And Clint goes, "Well, what part would you rather play?" He's like, "Well, I think I'd want to be Scraps." And Clint says, "Good, because I want to be the other guy," which I think is just so funny. And they are so good together. Yeah. They have such chemistry. Yeah. And finally, the deal ends up, Warner Brothers won't put up all the money. And Rosenberg, the guy who had come up with the original $6 to $7 million, his company, Lakeshore, is going to put up half the money. Warner Brothers puts up the other half. And finally, we have the $30 million budget that Clint wanted. The problem is, someone's got to call up Paul Haggis and tell him he's not directing this movie. And Clint calls Paul Haggis, and this is that story we heard over and over again where he picks the phone. "This is Clint Eastwood. Come on." "Seriously, who is this?" "Eastwood. It's Clint," you know? And Clint has to tell him, like, "You wrote a great script, and but I'm going to be directing the film." And Haggis has to accept. I mean, it's Clint Eastwood. What are you going to do? Yeah. And Clint says, "But there are a few changes that I want to make." So Clint takes the script home, and he starts working on the script. Yeah. And this is what he says. He does multiple rewrites, and at some point he reads his latest rewrite, and he realizes that the more he rewrites, the worse it gets. Oh. And he remembers his mentor, who's Don Siegel, who's a director he worked under in the 60s, and Don Siegel had told him that you can kill something with improvements. Yeah. And Clint realized that's exactly what he's doing, and he calls Paul Haggis up and says, "I was wrong. We're going back to your original script." Wow. And he said, "Script's good." And here's the thing. For Clint Eastwood, when he says script's good, that's it. There's no ad-libs on the set. We don't make changes on the set. Yep. They shoot what's on the page. And that's part of what makes him such an efficient director, is everybody knows what we're going to do, as opposed to the director that shows up and then throws the plan out the window. Yeah. That slows you down. And I just want to, you know, we said this when we talked about The Unforgiven. I sort of hinted on it. I just want to say it right at the beginning. Clint has worked with the same crew for decades. He is always organized. He expects everybody working on crew to be organized. Everyone shows up with their game on point, ready to go. It's super low stress. It's super efficient. And the only way to do this has to be organized top down. If you don't have good leadership, you can't do this. And what it means is because they're so efficient, because they're organized, because they show up on the day, at the moment, ready to shoot with a plan, Clint Eastwood is able to shoot more footage that looks better with less time and less money.
He's always under budget, and there is and delivers before it's due. Rarely ever goes past the assigned time in terms of the day number of days he's allowed to shoot a film. Also, actors now understand that when they come on a set with Clint Eastwood, you're going to get one or two takes. And that's when the ego of the actor takes over, and the actor comes uber prepared, uber memorized, has worked out 20 different ways to say these lines, and hopes to get it right in the first or second take, because that's what's going to end up in the film. So as an actor, it really requires you to do all this work offset before you step on set, so that you can deliver right off the bat in the first or second take, because that's all you're going to get. Eastwood is not one of these 276 takes for one scene filmmakers. He expects you to be as prepared as he is, and his crew, as you said, radiates that kind of professionalism and preparedness. So if you show up on a set like an actor all lazy and stuff, you're gone, and you're not going to make it, and your performance is going to show on screen. It's going to show how limited you are as an actor. So I find that to be fantastic, and it's no surprise that he gets incredible performances, not just from his leads, but from his character actors, his secondary actors, and also the smaller one-scene parts. These actors really do show up ready to deliver their work, their best work.
Well, and of course, the key to that is you got to start with good actors, and the way to start with good actors is you have a great casting director, and this movie is cast by Phyllis Huffman, who does an amazing job. And by the way, that's how Morgan Freeman wants to work. That's why he likes working with Clint Eastwood, is because it treats him like a pro, like an artist. Like, he's not getting directed to death. He's going to come in and he's going to do his job. He's going to do it the right way. And I have one story to illustrate this efficiency, and I'll try to say it really quick. One of my jobs when I teach in film school is to teach my students how to manage time. And in fact, the quote I've always heard from Clint Eastwood is, directing is time management. And so one of the questions is when they go on to their bigger shoots is I say, okay, let's say your call is 10 o'clock in the morning. What time are you going to get your shoot off? What time, your first shot off? What time are you going to roll camera? And they go, we get in at 10:15. And I go, really? And then we kind of talk through it. And they say, okay, maybe 10:30. And I go, listen, I've done this a bunch. The fastest you're going to get your first shot off is 10:45. And often when I'm on the set with these student films, it's 12:30. It's 1 o'clock before they get their first shot off. Here's the first day of shooting of Clint's shoot. Now, this is from Al Ruddy. I don't know if this is true. This is what he says. Mm-hmm. Crew time call, the crew call was 10 a.m. They had in the schedule, they're going to get their first shot off at 10:15. Oof. They rolled at 10:03. And they're moving on to their second shot at 10:08. They get on, they do the job. Now, I don't believe this. They had to pre-light because you can't light in 3 minutes. There's no way. It's not possible. But it's exactly to your point of one take, two takes. Mm-hmm. Clint says, that's what it is. We're moving on.
Allen's that way. Woody Allen's that way, right? Yep. 1 or 2 takes and then you're gone. You're done.
Well, and it's very similar. Cast great actors.
Yep.
Expect them to do their job. Don't give them a lot of direction. Mm-hmm. Move on. Yep. All right. Shall we get into this film?
Let's do it, man. Let's put on our boxing gloves.
We start with that black and white Warner Brothers logo and the guitar music. And of course, one thing that we don't talk about that much, but the composer of this film is Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood, yeah.
I think the music in this film is so important.
Oh, man. It's very similar to his Unforgiven music. There are some, not that it's like beat for beat the same, but the mood, the rhythm, the vibe is very similar to the score for Unforgiven. So I love it.
It's very much not the John Williams approach. This isn't leitmotifs and big themes. This is tone. This is mood. Just as you say, I think the music's great. We hear a crowd. We go right into a boxing match where we see Big Willy Little. That's Mike Coulter, who later becomes Luke Cage, and he's on the ropes taking some body blows. And there's the bell, and there's Clint in the corner, and we immediately go into Morgan Freeman voiceover.
Only ever met one man I wouldn't want to fight.
I mean, what else can we say about Morgan Freeman doing the voiceover?
I love it. I think it's great. Any movie you can find with a Morgan Freeman voiceover is an experience and a half, and the people who can imitate him the best when they're doing voiceovers of other things are just incredible to watch. So he's just got one of the greatest voices ever. It's
so great. And of course, part of the key is he's not putting that much on it. He's just he's just telling the truth. He's telling you the story. And what he's talking about is that Clint was a cut man. He's been doing it for 60 years. And this is this weird thing of like, our fighter is injured. He's bleeding. And if he bleeds too much, the doctor's going to call the fight. And so the cut man has to basically make it look like this guy isn't as injured as he is to get him to keep fighting. And he's putting some coagulant or something in there. And it's not stopping bleeding. And Clint convinces him to go out and fight. And the boxer turns to him and says, what do I do? Tell me what to do. And Clint's response is,
you let him hit you.
Which right there is a great opening of a movie.
Yeah.
And what we hear from Morgan Freeman is,
sometimes there's just nothing you can do. Cuts too wide, too close to the bone, or you just can't get the coagulant deep enough.
And we see our fighter drop his hand, and he takes a punch right to the face. And we zoom in on the wound, and you hear the tiny bit of the wound sealing up, that he needed that punch to get the coagulant deep. That's a great opening.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Right away, you realize this is a guy who likes taking control of a situation, doesn't mind breaking the rules or crossing a line, and has the full and complete trust of his fighters.
Yep, absolutely. Those are great points. And, of course, who's watching him, really watching Frankie, watching Clint Eastwood, is Hilary Swank in the audience watching. And as soon as that wound seals up, Big Willy knocks the other fighter down, wins the fight.
What's great about the way Hillary's introduced is very reminiscent of a High Plains Drifter, right? Because she comes out of the darkness in the hallway above, in the higher part of the stadium, right, or wherever they're at, the arena they're at. She is not front row. She's not sitting in the back waiting on him or watching it on TV. She comes out of the shadows, and it's a great way to come into this whole situation. It's a great way to introduce this character. This is not a character that draws attention to herself. It's not a character who needs the spotlight. This is a character who has no problem hiding because she's working mentally and internally on a whole different level, and you can tell that from the beginning.
Thought you might be interested in training me.
I don't train girls.
Maybe you should. People see me fight, say I'm pretty tough.
Girly, tough ain't enough.
And he walks away, and we leave her face in the shadows. I love Hillary's approach, or Maggie's approach to Frankie.
Yeah.
Is that what I will say is I think she has the confidence that comes from having nothing.
Yeah.
She's got nothing to lose.
If you don't understand the social norms of a situation, and you've had to fight to live, to survive, which we find out way later in the film, that is the overwhelming approach you have to life, is to keep banging on it till the wall breaks, right? And for her, there was a determination because she has that feeling. Once again, that's what I mean. She's vibrating at a completely different frequency than everyone else, and she vibrates at a frequency that leads to greatness. She knows what's correct. She knows she's going to get it. She knows she's going to wear him down, and she knows she's doing the right thing no matter how long it takes to get there. She knows she needs to do it that way, or else she's not going to achieve what she knows she can achieve with the right trainer.
And she's got nothing else.
Right.
This is it. This is her life. And so all she can do is keep hitting that heavy bag, staying up all night, hitting the heavy bag. That's all she's got. And now we're out in the parking lot with Big Willy, and we can see that from all the money they're making from these fights, that Frankie drives a really nice car.
Yeah.
Now they got to push start it, and Frankie's just had a conversation, and Willy asks what it's about, and Frankie says, "We got offered a title shot."
About time.
I turned him down flat. 2 or 3 more fights, you'll be ready.
I think Big Willy, the actor, plays this all so perfectly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Mike Coulter does such a great job.
Because you can see all the feelings. And he says...
Been 2-3 more fights for a long time now, Frankie.
Frankie says, you get one shot. You lose it, you're not coming back again.
2 or 3 more fights, we'll be ready.
What do you say, Frankie?
And there's so much in there.
Yeah.
What I want to point out, I think this screenplay is incredible. I think Clint was right to go back to the original one. And this, we've talked about plants and payoffs, and we talked about it in Back to the Future, the ultimate plants and payoffs movie. We talked about it in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. This movie, the plants and payoffs are incredible. Is that right in this scene where he says 2 or 3 more fights, we see Frankie's basic character.
Yeah.
He wants to protect his fighter. He wants to protect his fighter to a fault.
Yes. He's almost too cautious, too wanting to refine it too much, wanting to be too perfect. And like you just said, improvements can ruin a whole something if you start to work on it too much.
What a great point. That's such a great way to connect those things. I hadn't thought about it.
I mean, that's what it feels like. He wants to improve his boxer so much that his boxer's untouchable, but that's not possible. Yeah. So he'll keep him away from a title shot until he's perfect, and he'll never be perfect. Yep. So it'll be a cycle that never finds a place to stop.
Frankie liked to say that boxing is an unnatural act, that everything in boxing is backwards.
That idea of everything in boxing is backwards is something we're going to come back to. And I think it's a line that gains more and more meaning the more I think about it. In terms of the film and the action of this film. And as we're hearing that, we see Hilary Swank on the bus, riding home on a lonely bus, and we hear Morgan Freeman says,
"Sometimes the best way to deliver a punch is step back. But step back too far, you ain't fighting at all."
And while we hear this, the other thing we see is Clint Eastwood kneeling by a bed and praying. And he has trouble getting down, and he has trouble getting up.
Yeah.
We're at church. And I would love to hear your thoughts on what the hell this is about. It's so funny is that Clint comes up, which apparently for 23 years he's been going to mass every day and every day harassing the priest. And this one is about explain this, one God, three God thing. Yeah. And the priest is Brian O'Byrne. Good Irish name.
Good Irish name.
And Clint Eastwood even compares the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost to Snap, Crackle, and Pop from the Rice Krispies. And I love the priest because he's like, you do this every day. You're going to get a rise out of me today.
And then he does.
And then he does. And he says,
there are no demigods, you fucking pagan.
Why does Frankie do this? What's happening?
When I watch these scenes, I always think he's an instigator. He's a fighter. For him, this is, what greater opponent can there be than God? So to step in the ring with God and go toe-to-toe with God and go a few rounds with God and his message, right? And so he's got a place to put that anger or questioning to, and that's a priest. And he knows that the priest will do it and have the conversation with him, right? There's this relationship he's built up. He's a man of... what do you call this? Patterns. He's a man of patterns. He does this every day. Like I said, 23 years. He goes to that gym. He wants the things a certain way. There's a pattern of his life. Even when he talks to Hillary later, he's like, you're going to do everything I say. Don't question me. But there's his patterns. And so he's built this nice, safe life where he has the occasional moment of smirkiness and feeling like an imp a little bit when he's going up against the priest. But it's for his own self-satisfaction. And the priest allows him to do it as well because a priest is beholden to try to save every soul that comes into contact with him or her. Right, exactly. So, but I love these moments because they're a great way also character-wise to not let you fall into the stereotype of the grizzled trainer. Like there's more going on with him. And of course, we find out of his daughter and all of that. So there's more going on with him than is normally seen when we see a trainer of boxers in movies.
I think that's right on the money. And you actually I think I figured out part of it for me too, is that we saw him praying. We know that his religion is really important to him.
Yes.
But I also think that he has fundamental doubts.
Yes.
And so what he actually wants is the priest to convince him that what he's believing in is right, and that actually there is God and there is heaven and there are things to have faith in, but he's so snarky that he can't, in the end, you have to take a leap of faith. And he's like going, no, help me to get there. And of course it's impossible for the priest to do.
But isn't this a part of who he is?
Absolutely, yeah.
He's seeking perfection. Even in the priest situation, he's seeking perfection.
Because I think one of the interesting things is, I think there's a reason to believe that he is in fact the perfect fight trainer.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's figured it out.
Yeah.
Except that he cannot control everything.
Yeah, which is why this story is about him and Maggie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both have to change.
Yeah. Let's head to the hit pit. Go out to the gym. And again, I love how Morgan Freeman is exploding these ideas about boxing. And the first thing he says is, some people say the most important thing a fighter can have is heart.
Frank would say, show me a fighter who's nothing but heart, and I'll show you a man waiting for a beating.
And now we get to meet Danger.
Danger.
Jay Baruchel. He's great in this.
God. He's so funny.
And he gets kind of dumped by a truck, and he goes to introduce himself to Morgan Freeman, and his first line contains a word that I do not say.
Yeah, right.
But the moment is so funny, and Morgan Freeman's reaction is so great because he says,
hey, I got nothing against.
And Morgan turns to him and says,
well, that's nice to hear.
And he is convinced that he is going to not only be the middleweight, welterweight champion of the world, but he's going to fight Tommy Hearns.
Tommy Hearns, who's been retired for quite some time.
The Hitman. And their training in the ring at the Hit Pit are two members of the Marvel community.
Yes. Anthony Mackie and Michael Pena. Right.
Huh. I had totally forgotten that they were in this movie.
Oh yeah.
And they're our jerks. They're our jerks of the gym.
Shorel Berry. Had a left hook that would move a tank. But he had a heart the size of a split pea.
So we got the guy with all heart, danger. That's a guy who's going to take a beating. And we got a guy who's got the physical skills, but no heart in Anthony Mackie's character.
Yeah.
And we hear a little bit about how Frankie ended up with this gym, which is that the previous owner decided to retire and then died before he could leave. And that Frankie ends up with the gym, which I think is important because it has echoes of what happens at the end of the film.
Yeah.
So what's hard about doing this, the little scenes that aren't important are so good that I want to talk about them.
They decorate the larger ones.
Clint Eastwood walks up to Morgan Freeman and criticizes his choice of bleach.
And how many times have I got to tell you that bleach is bleach? Why can't you just buy the cheap stuff? You don't always have to buy the expensive stuff.
It smells better, Frankie.
Bleach smells like bleach.
It smells the same. It all smells the same.
Bleach smells like bleach.
Bleach is bleach.
And in comes Big Willy.
Yeah.
He walks over and makes eye contact with this slick-looking guy near the ring, and that is Mickey Mack.
Yeah.
Wow. And Morgan watches, goes inside to Frankie's office where he's reading something in another language.
Yeah.
And Morgan says,
I just thought you might like to know you got a fighter out there not talking to another manager.
Not talking to another manager?
And not just any manager. Mickey Mack.
And he's like, you think it's important to tell me that my fighter is not talking to this guy? Well, and this is the thing, is that Scrap, Morgan Freeman's character, is an incredible observer.
Which is why he narrates the movie.
Yeah. And has deep understanding about what's going on. And he has seen this thing in Big Willy.
Oh, yeah.
That Frankie has blinded himself to.
Right.
And we know exactly what that thing is because we heard the way Big Willy said, been 2 or 3 fights for a while now.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Yep.
And this is also the first time we see Maggie at the heavy bag.
Who's your new girl? What?
Frankie doesn't like girl boxers. He doesn't want her in the gym. He doesn't like the way that she looks hitting that bag. He thinks she's going to lose in business.
You're wasting your time. I told you I don't train girls.
Thought you might change your mind.
There's dozens of trainers who train girls. You won't have any trouble finding one.
Don't hardly need a dozen, boss. You'll do fine.
And she's got that same smiley attitude of like, I'm not giving up.
You will, boss.
Don't call me boss now. I'm not your boss, and don't you be calling me that.
If I stop calling you boss, will you train me?
No.
Then I might as well just keep calling you it.
That's what I mean. She is there to just deconstruct his patterns, to absolutely shake him out of this life of his that he has constructed for him. This safe, comfortable life of his he's constructed for himself. She is there to challenge him. She is there to test his faith. And I love that.
It's like she understands something about him that he doesn't understand about himself. And that understanding gives her the confidence to just, I'm just here.
I want to say something, Steve, before we move on. I think it's really important with Clint Eastwood to have this discussion real quick. And that is, a lot of people came after him after Richard Jewell. It's really frustrated me, really angered me. Especially a lot of the critics, the movie critics, a little bit of the liberal critics. I was really frustrated to see them bashing Richard Jewell, saying, oh, this Olivia Wilde character, oh, it's being used that she slept to get sources, as if no one has ever slept to get information from somebody. And they were denigrating, oh, a female character. How could you do this with a female character? He has a history, Eastwood does, of having strong female characters in his movies. $1 Million Baby is yet another example of a strong female character leading the movie, teaching him lessons throughout the movie instead of vice versa. And that is, I think, important to point out. He is a filmmaker who's, yes, Republican, yes, he spoke to a chair, yes, all of that stuff. But he's not a dyed-in-the-wool one thing. He's a man of interesting points of views, complex points of views, and different points of views. To try to put Clint Eastwood in a box is a disservice to yourself and to him. He has a point of view, and he expresses it in his movies, and it's very clear. Unforgiven, what's it about? It's about these men who assault and try to rape these women and scar up a woman, and he is assigned, in essence, indirectly, to go and seek revenge. And when he seeks revenge, he gets revenge on everyone for the mistreatment. And last thing he says is, don't cut up any more whores and blah, blah, blah. I'll come back and kill you and your family and all this stuff. So that's the thing. There is a nobility to how Eastwood portrays these characters in the film, and to denigrate him or to try to marginalize him for one character in a movie and try to cast aspersions on it, it's just very frustrating for me, because we cannot live in a world where only liberal filmmakers are allowed to make movies. We have to be wide open to middle of the road approaches to the world, and it used to be okay to do that. And it frustrates me to see it sometimes in our critic sphere when they veer too far to the right or too far to the left to try to denigrate a filmmaker who has right-leaning tendencies. And I think it's unfair, especially with a great filmmaker like Clint Eastwood.
Well, I'll take it a step further than that, is that I don't think we can see a thing, like we've talked about this literally since the beginning of the Cine-Files, of the difference between the thing the character did and the filmmaker's intent.
Right.
And sometimes I push against moments where I think the filmmaker, this is their point of view coming through in a way that I don't like.
Yeah.
I don't think Clint Eastwood is saying that female reporters should sleep with people to get
or that
stories.
They all do it.
Or that they all do. I think he's saying that this character does. And it brings up something, literally, I've scrolled down in my notes to the very end of my notes. Yeah. Because, and this is something I was going to talk about at the end of the film, but look, we spoil all movies that we talk about. This movie is going to go to a very dark place where she's going to break her neck, she's going to become paralyzed, and that Clint Eastwood is going to be faced with the choice of killing her.
Assisted suicide.
Suicide. When this happened, disability rights advocates came after the movie. And they said, this is absolutely wrong. It's terrible. You shouldn't do it. And there was a bunch of controversy. Here's what Clint Eastwood said. He said, I've gone around in movies blowing people away with a .44 Magnum, but that doesn't mean I think that's the proper thing to do. Is that this is what that character did in that movie. And is it motivatable that the character did it? Is it a good story? Does it make you think about it? That doesn't mean you're saying that's what's good. I don't think, your interpretation of the end of Unforgiven is different from mine. Mm-hmm. But I don't think you watch Unforgiven and just go, this is good, Yeah, I think you watch Unforgiven and go, is this good?
Right. Like, he's a complex character.
It's a complex character. Yeah. And and that's good. I mean, that's what good movies do. If you watch, I never saw Richard Jewell, by the way, although I've heard it's a good movie.
It's damn good.
If you watch that movie and go, I can't believe this character did it, that's horrible. That's okay. And if you watch the movie and go, I understand why this character did it, that's okay. That's what movies are.
And people tried to install in that film, like, oh, it's his way of defending Trump and that this is the media. But this actually happened. This is more about the media, regardless of your political affiliation, that can destroy a person hunting clicks because they're hunting clicks or hunting likes, and both sides of the media do it. And so it's like that's what his film was. But people, because he's a Republican, people feel that, oh, he was saying this about, and they judge the movie through that prism. And I think that has to stop at some point.
It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. People are never going to stop judging movies. I mean, like that's just
true. Very true.
That is what it is. And I think people, it's like we talked about this when we talked about Chasing Amy. We talked about this. We talked about Reservoir Dogs. We talked about this over and over and over again. Good movies force you sometimes to confront things you don't want to confront. Yeah. That's good. So anyway, he's talking to Maggie. He walks away from her. I love, by the way, Morgan Freeman's description of where she came from.
Set in the seat as an oak tree somewhere between nowhere and goodbye.
Yeah, that's such a great line.
It's a great line. And we see that she's a waitress, and we also see that she's stealing food.
Claiming she has a dog.
Yeah, and that she would go home and she eats that steak that was for her quote-unquote dog, and she's got that jar of coins.
Yeah.
And it's great storytelling. Like, we get exactly who this person is. We like her a lot. And in this moment that we see here, that's when she's back at the gym, and Clint says, get rid of her. And Morgan's like, well, she paid. And he's like, how much she pay? 6 months. And then Eastwood goes, well, just don't encourage her. And then we cut to Danger, who's looking at a bottle of frozen water.
Oh, man, it's just brilliant.
And he asks,
he paid his dues?
Dues? Well, I can't afford pants. Want him to pay dues?
And here's what I love, is that I love that Frankie's gruff angry, cold. That's all bullshit.
Yeah.
Is that he doesn't kick out Danger.
Right.
He supports Morgan Freeman, Scrap's soft-hearted approach to these people.
Right.
He wants that, but he can't show that he wants it.
Well, because, and I've found this to be true in life, the people who are the gruffiest, angriest people are the most sensitive people because they do that so you don't get close to them. They do that so you can't hurt them. They do that so they can't care about you and lose you and feel the weight of that loss. And so they create a world where they can control access to themselves, and the gruffiness and the gruff nature usually is that a gate you have to walk through and push through to get to what's actually inside.
Well, if what you say is true, then Clint Eastwood must be the softest, most sensitive man in the history of the world.
I think he is.
Because he is the best grump ever on film, bar none.
I don't disagree.
There's nobody who is crusty better than Eastwood.
That's a great word, crusty, yes.
It's late at night. Morgan Freeman comes out of the dark, turns off the light, and hears she's still hitting that heavy bag. And he goes to watch her. And I just want, our budding filmmakers, budding cinematographers, photographers, look at the lighting of this scene. And in fact, the lighting throughout the movie, the use of silhouettes, the use of shadows, like in the first shot where he's watching her, his legs are illuminated, but the top half of his body is in shadow. And what I want you to understand, every shadow, and then you'll see people move in and out of the shadows. You'll see edge light around their head. You'll see half of their face in shadows. That's all created on purpose. That's created with flags and with lights, and it's shaped and it's framed over a long period of time. None of that is by accident. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of expertise. And you remember when I said that these people have worked with Clint forever?
Yeah.
Well, Tom Stern is the DP, the director of photography for this film. I look back, the earliest one I could find is he was Clint's gaffer on Sudden Impact in 1983.
Wow.
So that's 21 years earlier. The last thing he did with Clint was 15-17 to Paris.
Yeah.
So this guy, I mean, that's I had to do math. That's 44 years that he's worked with this guy.
Yeah.
Wow. Like that's just, there's nobody like that in film that works with these people as long as that.
Can't think of it as a bag.
And then he starts to teach her.
I'm not a trainer, but I can show you this if you like.
Appreciate any help I can get.
And of course, Morgan Freeman could be a trainer. Scrap could be a trainer.
Of course he could.
He's been around this game forever.
When it's moving towards you, it's moving around you, and moving away from you, all right? Now, you don't want to hit him when he's coming towards you, because what he's going to do is he's just going to push you back. It's going to smother your punches.
And I love the way they talk about boxing, and you can tell that FX Tool knew boxing.
Yeah.
Because this feels like, in a way that I don't think Rocky does, I don't think Raging Bull does, and I love both those films. A lot of good films about boxing. I don't think they understand boxing the way this movie does. There's just stuff in this that sounds like the real deep shit to me. And watch how he moves, and watch how she watches him.
Good. Keep that chin tucked in.
And again, watch that lighting play on their faces.
Now, you get this down, we'll put you on a speed bag. You do have a speed bag.
And there's that smile, and we see him pull down a box, and he says, you can borrow this until you can buy your own.
Yeah.
And I love the last moment, because she says, well, do you want to walk out with me? We'll walk out together to go home. And he goes, no, I am home. And we see his room that he lives at the gym. And I love that she says, it's nice. Because it's not a nice room.
Yeah.
But for her and her world, and it's at the gym, which is probably the place she loves more than anywhere else.
Right.
And this is just something Karen made me think of. Remember you said before about, you're getting a wife that's smarter than you?
Yeah.
Karen said at this moment that Morgan Freeman's character is all heart.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about that ever since, because I think that's totally a true statement. Mm-hmm. And I thought about what we say about Danger is all heart. And the meaning of what heart means for Danger, and what all heart means for Morgan Freeman. And is there a connection between those two kinds of heart? And I think when we start to talk about Frankie, and just the stuff you said, his sensitivity and his softness that's inside, he's all heart too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Different meanings of this.
If there's magic in boxing, It's the magic of fighting battles beyond endurance, beyond cracked ribs, ruptured kidneys, and detached retinas. It's the magic of risking everything for a dream that nobody sees but you.
You felt that way.
Oh, my God. Are you kidding? Yeah, of course. I mean, building this channel that I'm building up, Steve, it's being back in it again, being back in that pit again where you are like, you just have a belief that it can work. If you just do enough good work, someone's going to notice it. Someone who can sponsor it, someone who can fund it, so I can, hire people of resume, of note and legacy and talent. It's all of that. So you just have to have an undying belief in the things you're trying to build. I'm not a person who can comfortably become a cog in a machine. It just doesn't work for me anymore. And so I'm trying to figure out if this is the thing that will lead to it. So yeah, you have to have a belief in it. And it's funny you stop on that line because it struck me this time as well, really strong.
Dream nobody sees but you.
Yeah, nobody sees it but you. Nobody. Yeah,
I can't tell you. That's me over and over and over and over again. Every project like that I started, I had an idea. Nobody understood what the fuck I was talking about. Right. Even I didn't understand it completely, but I was following a thing. I mean, even when we started the Cine-Files, right, we didn't know what was going to be.
Yeah, true.
And then the vision starts to come, and you have this dream of what, and we still haven't reached the dream that I see, and I think that you see for the show.
Absolutely.
But you keep hitting that heavy bag. You keep getting up and fighting for it because that's what we do.
Hey, Flippy, come here, man. I think I found somebody you can beat.
And that, of course, is Maggie.
I don't fight women.
Her shutdown of Anthony, it's so good because it comes to them saying that something about her titties.
Man, look at her little bitty titties. They're like mosquito bites.
And then she says,
Saw your last fight show reel. Spent so much time face down, I thought the canvas had titties.
Boom! Game over.
Just a full knockout and watching Danger laugh. And then I love, and this is a great director and a great performer, when he falls out of frame laughing.
Yeah. Look at me. I'm Shawrell.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
And Frankie notices it too. Mm-hmm. And he likes it. He likes how she stood up for herself.
Right.
He's not going to show that yet.
It's so great. It's such a perfect shot. And he doesn't respond back, right? Because, once again, he has the heart of a pea.
Yeah.
So he won't fight back. He won't fight back even in a moment like that when he's trying to denigrate a woman and a woman completely owns his ass. He can't stand up for himself and he takes the loss. And Michael Pena even laughs. His buddy even laughs at him and stuff. So
because she has knockout power.
Right.
In a way, she takes him out in the first round.
Verbally and physically. Yeah, exactly. Took him out in the first round.
That's first round. And then Big Willy says something about he's got to go. Frankie offers him a rub down, and he says, no, I got to go. And something about his wife's car, which we don't really know what it is. But we know something's going on. And then Morgan Freeman says,
Man, the rub down whore today doesn't want one.
And Clint is like, he refuses to see it.
Right. He doesn't want to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little girl seems to be coming along.
Yeah. It's almost like someone's been helping her.
She might just be a natural. Looks like she's got something.
She's got my speed bag. That's what she's got.
All fun.
I love it.
And now he comes up to her and asks for his speed bag back.
Look, you seem like a nice girl. Can I give you some advice?
I'd appreciate that.
You're gonna find a trainer either in this gym or somewhere else that's gonna want to train a girl. It's the latest freak show out there. But the only trouble is they're gonna be wasting your time because you're too old.
And then we set up this thing that, like, she's 31, and he says it takes 4 years to train. Therefore, she's going to be 35 before she's going to get anywhere.
Already been working it for 3 years.
And he can't hit a speed bag?
But she's never had any training.
Right. The difference. Yep. And the thing is, she's won her fights without the training.
Yep.
So she knows to get to the next level, she needs him.
You're not going to cry now, are you?
No, sir.
And he gives her the backpack. Keep the goddamn thing. I love Eastwood's. I think this, by the way, I think this is his best performance in a movie that I can think of.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I love Unforgiven, but it doesn't. It's just, this is so much more nuanced. I mean, Unforgiven, you're giving me a look like I'm crazy right now.
I mean, I get that it's nuanced, but I also think that switch in Unforgiven is just incredible. From what you're being handed for a majority of the movie to when he fully becomes William Money and you realized, my God, this man is scary as fuck, you know? And
I'm not putting down one.
No,
I'm
I know.
raising up another.
No, it's all subjective if you
Totally.
feel it's your favorite, yeah.
Hey, Willie.
Hey, Frankie. I'm sorry to come by your house like this. I know you don't like people dropping in.
Oh, you're not people, Willie. You're welcome anytime. Come on in.
And it ends up that Frankie helped him with the car thing, because you get a sense that Frankie's part of the family. And I love Willie says, I'm sorry to come to your house. I know you don't like people dropping in. And he says, you're not people. Because this is his son.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
He's never said, you're my son.
Right, right.
And now this is the moment where his son is going to leave him.
Right. And that line where he says, and this is what a great screenwriter does, that line, you don't like people coming to your house. Already, in his mind, he has begun the separation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So by saying people, it's a distant term that's not a familiar. So when saying it like that, he's essentially already laying the groundwork for what he's going to do next. Yeah.
I also needed to talk with you about business.
Oh, yeah, well, I just got off the phone with Hogan. We're all set for September. Everything but the split.
I gotta leave you, Frankie.
And Clint Eastwood's, what?
What?
Is like, Eastwood's angry face is so scary.
Yeah, it is scary, isn't it?
And he says, basically, you taught me all this stuff, but I need to get the most out of this I can.
Yeah.
And you're not the guy, you don't have the connections. You're not that kind of a person.
Mickey Mac's a businessman. He can't teach you nothing.
You already taught me everything I need to know.
And it stops him.
Yeah.
It stops him. Because he hadn't considered that. Yep. He hadn't considered that, oh, crap, there's nothing more to teach him here, you know?
And he leaves. And this is the thing, is that in watching this now several times, I think Eastwood knew that this was coming and was refusing to face it.
Yep.
You know, he knew a year ago that he needed to get this guy the title fight, or he was going to lose him, and he couldn't do it.
Willie, tell you why.
It was Mickey. Mickey's got the connections.
Well, it ain't about connections, Frank. It's about you not believing in him.
Well, I found him. I stuck with him for 8 years. How's that for not believing in him?
You could have got him a title fight 2 years ago. Hell, he knew that. I'm amazed he stayed around this long.
What was I supposed to do? Just put him in over his head? Not protect him?
And that's the thing, this protection. I must protect him. And there's this phrase we're going to get to, which is, what's the first rule? Protect yourself at all times.
Yeah, so.
These ideas, and this is why it's such a good screenplay, is that everything that's being said makes sense in the scene, but then those things also resonate throughout the film and make connections with other things that make the film deeper.
And when we find out about his daughter, that's when it really starts to kind of round into shape about why he the way he is.
But what about you, Scrap? What did your manager do? You were a hell of a fighter, a lot better than Willy.
Which I think is interesting.
He get you a title fight, or did he just bust you out banging your head against other people's fist until you lost your eye?
I had my shot. I went out swinging, and no man can say I didn't.
And I love the honesty between these guys. Like, they give each other shit in a loving way that's totally honest and brutal.
Yeah, well, I remember. And excuse me if I didn't want my fighter spending the second half of his life cleaning up other people's spit.
And the thing is, he admires Scrap and loves him.
Yeah.
That's not what he thinks at all.
But that, once again, right? What did I say? People who are the gruffiest, they lash. They're the most sensitive, so they lash out, and that's because they have a hard time with their feelings, with their emotions, reconciling it all. So it becomes the response seems over the top for the situation because they're sensitive.
And the thing is, and this is where I go, it's like, oh, actually, he wants to bring love. That's what he wants, but he doesn't know how.
Right.
And again, this is the idea of like heart. What does it mean to have heart?
Right.
And I think Frankie has huge amounts of heart and is disconnected from it. Doesn't know how. Doesn't know what to do. He loved Willy.
Yeah.
And he didn't know how to show him that he loved him.
Yeah.
And Willy left. And of course, he's been trying to show his daughter, this is something we're going to get to, that he loves her for decades probably.
Yeah.
And can't do it. We go to a little bit of a montage where we see her at a restaurant, we see her running at a beach, we see her working on the bag, and Frankie is watching her. We see her go to a store, She buys a speed bag with
Yeah.
pennies. And Frankie is home. He's watching TV. It's the title fight.
Right.
And I love the way that this is all put together. It's beautifully edited, which is that Frankie emotionally is in the ring with Willy.
Yeah.
You can see in his body that he is doing. You see his feet move, his hands move, his body moves, his balance shifts. And you hear again this voiceover.
Boxing is an unnatural act because everything in it is backwards. You want to move to the left, you don't step left, you push on the right toe. To move right, you use your left toe instead of running from the pain like a sane person would do. You step into it.
There's a lot in that.
Yeah.
First of all, I think one of the differences between when I saw this movie in 2004 and is that I had taken a lot of martial arts, but I hadn't started teaching martial arts.
Oh, okay.
This stuff rings so true to me.
Yeah.
The connection to your toes and your feet and your how you move your balance and where power comes from. All of this is like, yeah, that's what it is. You know, is that and I can feel I'm doing it right now sitting at my desk as I'm putting pressure on my toe to send the power up through my leg as I move my body. Like that's all like correct stuff. And the idea of moving towards the pain again is something I think that resonates later in the film.
Yeah.
And Big Willy wins. He's the new champion of the world.
Right.
What that moment must be for Frankie.
Right.
Because he did it. He created this champion. And he is not there. And again, everything is backwards. Everything is a study in contradictions is what I would say about this. Mm-hmm. Frankie trains a fighter to hurt another fighter. That's his job.
Yeah.
To do that, he must put them through pain and agony. That's the only way we can see it. He must create pain and agony. Yeah. But when he puts them in the ring to hurt another fighter, they risk that fighter is going to get hurt. And it's that risk that he can't take. Yeah. I mean, there's so many contradictions. And so his motivation is protection, but to protect them, he must hurt them. And to give them what they want, to let Big Willy be who Big Willy has to be, he has to put them in a position where they can be really hurt. And where is this movie going to go? It's going to go exactly to the peak of this, the apotheosis of this idea of protection and pain and suffering and moving through pain.
Right.
Morgan's in his room. Frankie shows up. Want a cheeseburger? Again.
You never buy me a cheeseburger.
You never buy me a cheeseburger.
You watch it?
Yeah, I got HBO.
How can you afford HBO? How long have I been telling you to save your money?
Ever since I fought Louis Typhoon Johnson at the Stadium Club in Tupelo, Mississippi.
And we hear this story about how the drunk manager left them both behind and they're in the middle of nowhere and trying to hitch home. And I love that Morgan Freeman says,
I remember you leaving me with my dick in my hand behind that gas station.
It ends up that like he got a ride, Frankie did, and the guy pulled away before he could say, no, my buddy's over there. And he had to hike back a mile to find Scrap.
Yeah, right.
Your conscience got the better of you, that's what.
Conscience and doing the right thing, again, going back to do the right thing. What's going to happen at the end of this movie? You know, trying to figure out what the right thing, and why does he go back to Morgan Freeman, an African-American man left alone in the middle of nowhere in the South? He goes back to protect him.
Yep.
And now we go to see Maggie. And it's her birthday. She's 32, and she is celebrating. This is how she celebrates, work in the bag.
And I'm here celebrating the fact that I spent another year scraping dishes and waitressing, which is what I've been doing since 13. And according to you, I'll be 37 before I can even throw a decent punch.
This speech is amazing.
19 years, man.
Yeah.
Other truth is, my brother's in prison. My sister cheats on welfare by pretending one of her babies is still alive. My daddy's dead, and my mama weighs 312 pounds. If I was thinking straight, I'd go back home, find a used trailer, buy a deep fryer and some Oreos. The problem is, this is the only thing I ever felt good doing. If I'm too old for this, then I got nothing. That enough truth to suit you?
It's Richard Gere in Officer and a Gentleman.
Totally.
Right? It's any of these films that you've seen depicting a character that has nothing else. Therefore, the dream is more powerful than it would be for someone who's distracted by multiple things. If there's nothing else, then that dream is everything you're holding on to. So it identifies who you are. And so it has has to work. It has to be possible. And some people do achieve that because they are so singular-minded about it, you know? And some people, unfortunately, fall by the wayside when they can't achieve it and spiral into depression or sadness or whatever. And that's the truth, you know? And so she put it all on the table to him, you know? She said, this is my reality. This is my truth, you know? And it takes him aback. You know?
Want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
So you mentioned Officer and a Gentleman.
Yeah.
Karen and I stopped the movie right around this point. We were talking about it. You know what Karen said?
What?
She said, "I've got nowhere else to go."
Yeah, exactly.
Which is Officer and Gentleman. Like she quoted, it's exactly what this moment is. And she goes back to hitting the speed bag. And he goes, "Okay, stop. I'll show you a couple things."
Yeah.
And the reaction of when he says that, of just thank you.
I'll show you a few things, and then we'll get you a trainer.
No, sorry.
You're in a position to negotiate?
Yes, sir. Because I know if you train me right, I'm going to be a champ. I seen you looking at me.
Yeah, out of pity.
And this is the only time she gets angry.
Yeah. Don't you say that.
Don't you say that.
Don't you say that if it ain't true.
That's strong. That's a strong thing to say.
I want a trainer. I don't want charity, and I don't want favors.
And of course, from the shadows, Morgan Freeman is watching. And I think, again, for you directors out there, for you screenwriters out there, it adds nothing to the scene and everything.
Yeah.
Having that witness to this.
If you're not interested, then I got more celebrating to do.
Clint's face, you know, talk about a face etched in iron and pain and sorrow and time. And he watches her, and she goes back to punching, and he stops her again. And he says, "God damn it, stop.
God damn it, stop."
Like she's beaten him.
Yeah.
She has beaten him down.
Okay. If I'm going to take you on...
You won't never regret it.
Look, just listen to me. If I take you on...
I promise I'll work so hard.
And she is beaming. Her smile is everywhere. He can't even get through the sentence.
God, this is a mistake already. If I take you on, you don't say anything. You don't question me. You don't ask why. You don't say anything except maybe, yes, Frankie. And I'm going to try to forget the fact that you're a girl.
That's all I ask.
And don't come crying to me if you get hurt.
Which is, of course, where the movie's going to go.
I'm going to teach you how to fight. Then we'll get you a manager, and I'm off down the road.
Well, I hate to argue with you, but...
Don't argue with me. That's the only way we're doing it. I teach you all you need to know, and then you go off and you make $1 million. I don't care. You get your teeth knocked out. I don't care. I don't want to hear about it either way. That's just the way it's going to be.
And then they shake hands, and again, a beautiful silhouette. The deal he made just now is exactly what happened with Big Willy.
Yep.
I'm going to teach you everything I know, and then you're going to go off and make $1 million and be champion of the world.
Right.
And that is exactly what hurt him.
Yeah.
And so he's now said, I'm going to make exactly the deal that was terrible for me. And he said the biggest lie in the whole movie. Go get hurt, get your teeth knocked out. I don't care.
Right.
And what's interesting is that, you know, protect yourself at all times. He thinks he's trying to protect himself.
Yeah.
He's saying, I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to get emotionally involved.
Right.
I'm going to harden my heart to this person so that whatever happens to him, whether they have either amazing success without me, I'm going to be okay with that. Or if they get hurt and ruined, I'm going to be okay with that too.
Yeah.
And of course, she's going to have both of those things. Yeah. Amazing success and amazing tragedy.
Right.
And he is not going to be okay with any of it.
Nope.
And then, again, we get the teaching.
You go hit the bag. Stop.
And you can see it just pains him the way she hits the bag.
What'd I do wrong?
Okay, you did two things wrong. One is you asked a question, and two is you asked another question.
There's so many, we've talked about so many great teachers. There's Mr. Miyagi, and there's Yoda, and there's Mickey in Rocky. This is another one. So really good teacher.
It's not about hitting it hard. It's how good you hit it. So, watch me. And you count with me if you want. I guess it's just count on a one count. I hit right through the bag.
Can you show me that again?
Just say one, please.
One.
Okay. One.
One.
Okay.
And Hilary Swank's performance, the joy.
Yeah.
It's like she's a person who just came out of the desert, had needed a drink of water, and now there's cool water for her to drink.
Yeah.
You know, it completes her in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely agree.
And then what we do is we go into a montage.
Yeah.
What's so crazy about this is the classic training montage. It is structurally exactly like a montage from Rocky. And the way, when you're doing a montage like this, you're going to show a progression. So you're going to show a few things, and you're going to show progression in each of those things. So in this case, it's like the speed bag, it's like the jump rope, footwork, sit-ups, physical fitness, all those things. And when you start off, first time, she's terrible.
Yeah.
Second time, small progression, still bad. Third time, pretty good. Fourth time, now she excels.
Yeah.
And we see that, you can see that in Rocky 1, you can see it in Rocky 4, and you see it in this, and it's the same kind of montage, except the tone is completely different.
Yep.
It doesn't even feel the same. And I think the big reason is the music. Is that this is somber and moving and personal. Yeah. Instead of bum 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 bum. You know what I mean? Like it's just a different thing.
To make a fighter, you gotta strip them down to bare wood. You can't just tell them to forget everything you know. You gotta make them forget it in their bones. Make them so tired they only listen to you, only hear your voice, only do what you say and nothing else.
There was an expression, maybe I've said it on the Cine-Files before, but a martial arts expression that I really love, which is the idea that when you first learn a thing, it's written on that first layer of your skin like in pencil. And if you never did it again, it would just fall off. And if you do it 6 months or something, now it's written kind of deeper in the skin and deeper. Yeah. And if you do it for years and years, eventually that knowledge gets written on your bones. But that's not really what you want. What you really want is for it to be written in the marrow, in the core of your bones inside. And when you have that knowledge, when it's written that way, and that only comes with years and years and years and years of practice and repetition, then it's yours.
Yeah.
It's your knowledge. It's in your bones. And that's what they're talking about here.
Then you gotta show them all over again, over and over and over, till they think they were born that way.
If you were in a Rocky montage, it ends with him running up the steps.
Yeah.
You know, or at the end of the Rocky 4 montage, it ends up at the top of the mountain in a huge, powerful, triumphant moment. This ends almost like with a whimper.
Yeah.
Think I'm ready for a fight, boss?
So, and of course, like in all these movies, we've done a lot of sports movies lately, is that Hilary Swank had to train. And she was basically freaked out. She was so scared that she wouldn't be able to deliver. She was working on Red Dust, which is a movie I've never seen, in South Africa before this. And she, working on that movie, would shoot all day and then train for 4 hours every single day, 6 days a week. And what was really tough for her, she's a very slight build, and she had to put on weight. She had to put on muscle. Well, she's a vegetarian at the time. So really hard to put on muscle when you're a vegetarian. This is what she ended up doing. She drank 60 egg whites a day.
What?
Yes. And she had to do it every 1.5 hours, which means in the middle of the night, she has an alarm set to wake her up to drink egg whites because it's the fastest way you can eat them, and have a protein shake. She put on 19 pounds of muscle, which my guess is she weighed 100 pounds starting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's not a big person. So 19 pounds of solid muscle is some serious, serious training.
Yeah.
And it shows. I mean, you know, it's so funny because we've done Chariots of Fire and Field of Dreams and all these movies. We just did Major League where they talk about, oh, this person was really a good athlete. And sometimes I think it's true and sometimes it isn't. But I think she moves really well as a boxer.
Yeah.
I think she took this training real seriously. And I think the fear of failure, like you talked about before, working with Clint, that's a hell of a motivator.
Think I might be ready for a fight, boss?
Well, we'll get a manager and we'll find out, won't we?
And Morgan Freeman is watching this whole thing, and she asks him, got any family, boss?
No. Well, I've got a daughter, Katie.
That's family.
We're not exactly close.
How much she weigh?
Which is a really weird question.
Trouble in my family comes by the pound.
Not very big. Used to be real athletic. Don't know if she kept it up.
And the camera pushes in on him, and she says,
What do you think? I ready for a fight?
I think if she hadn't asked about family, this scene would not have gone where this scene goes. I think it's because he's thinking about his estranged daughter and because he wants to protect himself, because he knows that he's really starting to care about her, which is what he didn't want to do, that he says,
"Hey, Sally, come here for a minute, will you?"
And brings this sort of slick-looking, scummy guy over and says,
"Sally here's a real good manager. Has a couple of Golden Glove boys. Looking for a girl, Sally?"
And the look from Hilary Swank at this moment.
Yeah. He's so stupid here, Steve, because he essentially turns her unwittingly into a prostitute. I'm going to hand you off to this better man to take care of you. Because I've taken you as far as this is the deal.
To a worse man. By the way, to a worse man.
Yeah, worse man, right.
Yeah.
So her look is one of complete and utter betrayal and disgust. And yet, it's something that she's experienced before, and you can tell by the way she composes herself. She doesn't fall apart. She doesn't get emotional. She has been passed off like this before. So she knows exactly what to say. And Lord Almighty, does she say it.
And I think what's so interesting is that his motivation, basic motivation we've seen from the beginning, is to protect people. Protects Willy, protect Scrap, protect even Danger. You know, he doesn't kick Danger out on the street.
Right.
And of course, and now he thinks he's protecting himself. What's the first rule? Protect yourself at all times. And in fact, what he's doing is hurting her, hurting the person he most wants to protect.
So you want to give this a try? See if it's a fit?
And she looks over at Frankie, and he is not giving her anything.
Yeah, sure.
Good. Because I think you're ready for a fight.
And we cut to the fight.
Right.
And she's losing.
What am I doing wrong, Sally? Every time I get in fractures, all me.
You're doing great. You're wearing it down. Just keep punching.
I ain't doing great. I'm losing.
You're wearing it down.
So terrible.
Yeah.
And the round starts, and she goes in and starts getting hit again. And we see up in the rafters somewhere are Morgan Freeman and Clint Eastwood, and they're watching. And the pain on Frankie's face.
Your left. Keep your left up.
It's so emotional for him.
Yeah.
And what we basically hear from Morgan Freeman, while he continues to say, keep your left up, and Morgan Freeman's like, she can't hear you from here. What we basically hear is that this whole thing's a setup. That this guy is letting her, putting her up against someone that she's going to lose to help his other fighters, basically.
Right.
And again, he keeps saying, keep your left up. And then they go down.
Okay, break.
Hey, come here. Come here. You're dropping your left hand. Quit dropping your left hand.
Hey, Frankie, you mind if I talk to my fighter?
Well, you're doing a hell of a job of it, Sally.
And the ref comes up and is like, what's going on?
Is this your fighter? It's my fighter.
It ain't fitting real well, Sally.
Fine, you take her. She can't fight worth a shit anyway.
You're telling me this is your fighter?
And there's a pause, and the camera pushes in on him, and he says,
Yeah, this is my fighter.
Then you got 10 seconds.
I keep holding my left up off, then I throw a punch and it keeps dropping.
Yeah, well, let it drop.
That'd be a lot easier.
She thinks she knows you, that's all. Every time you drop it, she comes right over the top. So you just wait for her, see? That's all she's thinking about. And when she cocks that big right hand, you hear me?
I hear, boss.
And when she does, you step to the side and come over with this big good night hook. You got one?
Got it right here.
and it just, this clicks, you know? Mm-hmm. It's just, everything is coming together. And the round starts, you know, she drops her hand, there's a left cross, and she just knocks her down. Yeah. And what I love, too, in this moment is Morgan Freeman reacts to this. He says,
See the way she did that? Yeah. Sugar Ray would do that. Girl's got sugar.
And what I love is to watch the scene, and, you know, because first, what happens when we first watch a movie is we're usually watching the person that's talking. So you're going to watch Morgan Freeman. Watch it again and watch Clint Eastwood's face, because he saw the same thing Morgan Freeman saw, and it shocked him. He didn't know that she got sugar, and he sees that she's a whole other level of fighter than he thought she was before.
You forgot the rule. Now, what is the rule?
Keep my left up?
Is to protect yourself at all times. Now, what is the rule?
Protect myself at all times.
Good, good.
And then, I love, this moment is so great. She says,
You gave me away. How's that protecting me?
It wasn't.
that's strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said.
And the thing, too, I think, he knew how he felt about Willy but couldn't face it. He knew how he felt about her but couldn't face it, and so gave her away. Not only did she know how she felt about him, she knew how he felt about her.
Right.
So this moment, how is that protecting me, is her saying it. Like, we have something special between the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, how'd I do?
Fine. You did fine.
You gonna leave me again?
And he says,
Never.
it's an amazing moment, that never.
Yeah. It's been building to this moment. And she has earned this. Because by the same token, remember, just because, you know, she wants him to be his trainer or her manager, rather, her trainer, doesn't necessarily mean he owes it to her to be that. She had to earn it and fight for it. She's a nobody. He's an accomplished trainer. So she had to work her way up to that moment. And she persisted and she fought through it and she put him on notice a couple of times as well. And then in that moment is where he finally comes around to her and he's like, never. And he's fully committed to her now. Why? Because she broke through his defenses. Once again, he's a sensitive guy. There's no one he wants to protect more than himself. And it's not a selfish thing. It's just because he knows how much it hurts him to hurt other people or to see other people hurt under his watch. And so when she's finally burrowed through those defenses, those grizzled, gruff defenses, she's got to his heart. And right after Mike has left him, here comes Maggie to repair him and to be that pseudo/daughter that he doesn't have in his life anymore, which we don't know much about. Yep. And so it's like she comes in and fills that spot that he's been missing.
Well, and I think what's so great about the scene is that ostensibly this is a scene about a manager and a fighter. Yes. And when she asks, what we're talking about is he going to quit as her manager as he did before?
Yeah.
That's what the scene is on the surface.
Right.
But that isn't what the scene is. When he doesn't say, I'm never going to leave you while you're a boxer.
Right.
Or she says, are you going to leave me? And he says, never. And the shot is still and it's quiet and it's silhouetted and he's half in shadows. Yeah. And I think this is just a true confession. This is full heart coming out. And then the next thing that happens is fascinating because he says,
that place you work, do they have homemade lemon meringue pie there?
Sure.
Not the kind with the can filling crap.
Big can, yay size. Says homemade on the label.
Why does he ask this question at this moment?
This is his way of, it feels like this is his way of, what do they call that?
Misdirection or distraction?
No, sealing the deal. What do they call it? Yeah, celebratory drink to seal the deal.
I think there's a lot of things going on here, and I think screenwriting-wise, it's really interesting. Is that I think to some degree, I don't think Clint Eastwood's a person who can stay in the emotion. You know what I mean? He can't sit there. He just said never. I'm never going to leave you. He basically said, I love you. Yeah. And he can't sit there, and so he goes to something that seems like a non sequitur. Hey, let's get some pie.
Yeah,
what is it? Good pie? I like lemon meringue pie. But then what's really interesting about this is that later on in the film, we're going to the diner that has the real lemon meringue pie.
Yeah.
And there he says, I think I've died and gone to heaven.
Yeah.
And then the end of the movie ends there too. And so even though I think on some level this is the distraction from the true emotion, on another level, lemon meringue pie, homemade real lemon meringue pie, is a truth. There's something deep here about home and love and family.
Yeah.
You know, and we sense, much like we sense in a weird way with the daughter, that lemon meringue pie is special to him in some way. We don't know if his wife made it or what. We never know what happened with the daughter, but it's special.
I want you to take the weekend off.
It's only Thursday.
You gonna argue with me?
No better than to do that, boss.
Well, good.
And with that sort of light moment, we've sealed the deal. Their relationship is now established, spoken, where it's going to be. And I think at that moment, it's time for us to end part one of our exploration of $1 Million Baby. I knew this was going to be a two-parter Because I just knew watching it, I was like, damn, I have so many thoughts and so many emotions about this thing.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact is, we would never be doing this without the Warner Brothers Hollywood Most Influential series, which is going to be on YouTube starting on September 15th. All you have to do is go to youtube.com/Warner Brothers Online, Warner Bros. Online for more information, and you will get to see their exploration of great filmmakers, including Stanley Kubrick, Martin Scorsese, Ridley Scott, Frank Darabont, and of course, the great Clint Eastwood, who we're talking about today.
There's behind-the-scenes footage, interviews, all kinds of stuff that's going on there that you haven't had access to before, and it'll be fun for anybody who is a properly spelled cinephile and also slightly improperly spelled cinephile with us. This is a real treat for you all that you're getting from Warner Brothers. So please go over there and tell them we sent you. If you can put it anywhere in their comments section of YouTube, tell them you came there from the Cine-Files, that we sent you.
Absolutely. And of course, we always want to hear what you think. So take a visit to our Facebook page. Just do a search for the Cine-Files. I will say spelled properly with a dash and an F. And you can also subscribe to the show on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and a whole bunch of other places. In fact, I actually think Amazon is going to have their own podcast section. I think that's getting launched soon, and we'll hopefully be there as well. Please leave your reviews on iTunes. They're really important to the show. You can leave comments on YouTube, which we always like reading. You can support the show at patreon.com/the Cine-Files. You can buy or stream $1 Million Baby or any other movie we've ever reviewed on cinefiles.net. And you can follow the show on Twitter at Cine_Files, on Instagram at the Cine-Files Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at SR Morris and SR Morris1 on Instagram. John, how can they follow you?
You can always find me at The Roca Says on Twitter and on Instagram. And you can, of course, go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Roca Says, to see all the stuff we got going on there in the world. A lot of fun stuff going on the Outlaw Nation. Politics, professional wrestling, sports, and, of course, film and television discussions and reviews. So please come and be a part of that over there and have some fun with us.
And we will be back next week with part 2 of $1 Million Baby on the Cine-Files.